When 2025 started, I went with the theme all or nothing. Let's look back at the year and see if I lived up to that. Hello, and welcome to Pesto Comics. My name's Adriano, and this is the entry for Christmas Eve, December 24th, 2025. A year in review, a look back at the year of Pesto Comics. So I started off by mentioning the theme of the year. I do this every year since I've started with Pesto Comics, so not that long, about 3 years, but every year has had a theme. This one was all or nothing. The main idea being that in 2025, I'm going to put everything I can into the business to make it as real and substantial as possible. Before this year, I only had one-shots out there. I had Crazy Latte Thing Called Love, I had Stay Cool, and Unlimited Udo. That was me really testing the waters, seeing if I could make a go of it. Now, I felt pretty confident. I had a couple artists working on series that would be coming out, both Naked Kaiju Woman and From Parts Unknown, and I was really going to try to get myself out there more than ever. So my goal with 2025 was to really build out a proper backlist that wasn't just comprised of one-shots that went from genre to genre, but to have something substantial, something that hopefully in the future I could collect into trades. Although we didn't do that in 2025, we were able to complete an entire series and have some real success with another one. So let's look into the comics of 2025. So I learned quite a few lessons this year. I learned what works, what to try more of, and what to stop. And it's not just the way that campaigns are in, but also the type of books that I'll be doing going forward. The first campaign of the year was Naked Kaiju Woman #1. Unsurprisingly, this did very, very well. That campaign did better than anything I had ever done, exponentially. Crazy Latte Thing Called Love felt more like a calling card. It felt like a book that I would get out there and people knew me from. I was meeting people I wouldn't have met otherwise, both in person and online, all through this book. Naked Kaiju Woman was the first time I felt like this could be a sustainable thing to do. I can make a career of this if I do it all right. So with Naked Kaiju Woman #1, we very easily broke the records for both backers and total funded. So I was very happy to start the year in such a way, and that gave me a ton of momentum to continue the series that I started in 2024, which is From Parts Unknown. I launched From Parts Unknown issue 2 with plans for issue 3 already in place. I already knew that when I finished the campaign for #2, I was going to send out the pre-launch for #3 and launch that in a hurry. The whole goal was to try to mimic what you get in the direct market, that you can expect to get an issue, and then the next month you would get the next issue. And if you follow the post-mortem for From Parts Unknown #3, you'll know that that ended up being a little bit of a mistake for a number of reasons. I was expecting people to support issue 3 before they had ever read issue 2. So the lesson I take from this isn't necessarily not to launch so frequently, but maybe if you're launching a series, make sure people can get it in their hands before you're expecting them to support the next issue. Taking those lessons I learned from #3, I took a bit of a break. There was a bit of a gap between From Parts Unknown #3 and eventually From Parts Unknown #4, which was supposed to be a 5-issue series, but given that I feel like we broke a bit of the trust when launching 2 and 3 so consecutively, what I did was I combined issues 4 and 5 into one mega-sized issue. The whole idea being that we can end the series with a bit of a bang, and it did really well relative to the rest of the series, that this one actually funded itself, so very happy with how that all worked out. But looking back, I could have handled this entire series a little better. I learned quite a bit about how to put these series together, and something that I will definitely be carrying forward through 2026. And then much like we started the year, we end the year with a bang with the best performing Pesto Comics campaign yet. Naked Kaiju Woman #2. Unsurprisingly, #1 did really well, and #2 did even better. That was actually a bit of a surprise. We got so many new backers that we crossed 750 plus backers and continued to collect backers through late pledges well through fulfillment. And a bit of a side note, I finally got those books. They're all sitting behind me waiting for fulfillment. So as soon as all these videos are recorded, I mentioned a couple ago that I'm pre-recording a lot of these videos. So once this is all done, fulfillment is the thing I'll be doing through the holidays. So I hope that everyone gets those books very early in the new year. We'll see what happens with holiday shipping and all that, but expect those books soon. The main point of all this being, it ended really well as far as comics go, thanks to Naked Kaiju Woman #2. So there was a bit of a sag in the middle with how I handled the campaigns for From Parts Unknown. I learned a lot. I'm still very proud of that book, and there are a lot of fans of it. And there's big news coming about From Parts Unknown. I won't even be able to talk about it next week when I do the preview for 2026, but I'll be talking about it mid to late January, and I can't wait for you guys to hear the crazy development that's coming with that. So I'm very excited to share that very, very soon. All in all, pretty good year for comics. So I had one campaign to end the year, and I was going to make it a bit of a tradition where Big Smoke Pulp would be the campaign that I would run through November and December each year, just to kind of take a break from the comics and do something a little different. I'm a huge fan of short stories and novellas and all that kind of storytelling. I subscribe to way too many magazines, and I always have that piling up and always trying to catch up with reading those. And because of that, I think Big Smoke Pulp Volume 2 will be the last of the series. If not the last, it'll be the last one on Kickstarter for sure. With the plans I have for 2026 and how busy 2025 was with fulfilling comics and doing all of that, reading a bunch of short stories, we're talking hundreds of short stories, a few dozen of which actually end up in the book, just becomes very time consuming to the point that I'm not even reading for pleasure at that point. It becomes work. And that's not what you want any of this to be. Plus, I have my own projects I'm trying to get off the ground. So when I'm reading all of these entries that are coming in, I just find it's taking away from everything else for a book that is well supported. A lot of people seem to enjoy it, but it's something I think I have to weigh and something I may be pulling back on, if not entirely, at least as far as a Kickstarter campaign goes. And it may be something that I release in some other form or fashion down in the future. We'll have to see how that all goes. But for now, I think I will be shelving Big Smoke Pulp going forward. That said, that campaign did pretty well, even though, as I mentioned, I didn't give it the full support that I normally do with bigger campaigns. I didn't do any Facebook advertising or any Google advertising or any of that stuff. I didn't do very many posts on socials. A lot of that was due to it being during the holidays. I did a video about that a couple weeks ago, talking about maybe doing things during the holidays isn't the time to do it. If anything, that showed me that I need to focus a little better. If I want to scale this business and get more and more comics out there, get more and more artists working and getting cool stuff out there to all of you, I need to focus on comics. It's Pesto Comics after all. That doesn't mean that I won't be doing novellas and novels and all that in a different format, but as far as crowdfunding goes, I think it's going to be comics focused from here on out. Now, the comics and the crowdfunding and all of that is just part of this whole equation. So one big thing I did, more so in the beginning of the year than I did in the end, was be on a ton of podcasts everywhere and trying to have you guys see my face and see the work that I'm doing. And part of that was this YouTube/Substack channel thing that I'm doing with all the videos and the audio. If you're listening on the podcast, I haven't forgotten about you guys and I appreciate you guys for listening. But of course, this is just part of it. The way to expand this and the way you can find me, if it's not through my own channels, is being on other people's channels. So I was on By the Wayside. I was on the Comics Launch podcast, which is always a huge booster when I'm on that. I got to talk to Chris Stahl, who's been amazing to talk to, not just on the podcast, but beyond as we continue to chat online. That's been a lot of fun. And then there's Two Geeks Talking with Kurt Sasso, another Canadian. I always love talking to Canadians and seeing them kind of build things up. I was on the True North Country Comics podcast, and every time I see John at a convention, it always means a ton, especially when he bothers to put me on the show. So I do appreciate that. And of course, there was the graphic novel Apostle. This was a really fun episode because it was my chance to just talk about the history of Pesto Comics end to end. We didn't get into a book specifically. We talked a bit about Crazy Latte thing called Love, again, the calling card of this whole company and everything, but we talked about all of it. More importantly, we're planning on doing a proper episode in the new year. We have a book that I think fits really well with the whole theme of everything I'm doing and all that. So it'll be a lot of fun to talk with him in the new year. And then I got to talk to Jimmy Gasparo on the Cryptid Creator Corner with the Comic Book Yeti. That was a show that I've been listening to for quite a while, so it was really cool to be a part of that as well. And then, of course, there's the people that I've made friends with in person, and that includes the guys from Comics Asylum who've had me on their show a couple of times now, and it's been a lot of fun talking with them, both online and in person at shows. And that's a great segue for me to talk about all the conventions I went to. I did slow down quite a bit, but I traveled a lot further than I do sometimes. So I tabled at TCAF, where I was next to the Comics Asylum guys and Roberto Villacava. Speaking of podcasts, my podcast co-host on the Instant Ink comic book podcast. And just a week later, I went to the East Coast Comic Expo. I went all the way to Moncton, New Brunswick, and met a whole bunch of people from Toronto, which was wonderful. But I finally got to introduce myself to a lot of people I haven't met otherwise. And those were connections that I continued to foster, both at Fan Expo Canada, in my hometown of Toronto, and at New York Comic Con. So I kind of went all over the place, some of them tabling, some not. And then talking about Roberto Villacava and the Instant Comic Book Podcast, my last con of the year was MCX, the Mississauga Comic Expo. That's actually the closest of all of the comic expos. I am minutes away from where this convention took place, so that was really cool. I hosted a panel along with Roberto, and we did a live edition of the Instant Ink Comic Book Podcast. That'll be coming in the new year. I'm still working on editing it and making it a little clear to hear and all that stuff, but it should be a lot of fun to watch. I was just presenting at that convention. It gave me a great opportunity to go around and talk to everybody that I've met all through the year. That was really cool. Another convention I went to that was a little bit cart before the horse for me was Word on the Street. In my mind, Backlot Babylon was going to be out there already. Switch Restart would have been out there already. I would have had all these books out there and ready to read and on my table for what is effectively a book fair. And although they have comics, really it's meant for novels and for readers of said books. And I did not have those on offer outside of Big Smoke Pulp. That was my best seller through the day, which is unsurprising. So Word on the Street is one that I think I will be reconsidering going forward, but I figured I'd try it. So 2025 was a pretty great year. A lot of it thanks to the risks that I had taken, the mistakes that I'd made, and the support from all of you to make all of it happen. I really do appreciate you guys being here, for supporting week in, week out, for helping make these campaigns a success. My goal is to keep finding these amazing artists and leveraging them as much as possible to make as many cool stories as I possibly can. I have more stories written and planned than I think I'll ever be able to get through. So I'm picking the best of the lot and sharing them all with you. And I really hope you've been enjoying them. And 2026 is going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking as far as 2027 and even 2028 in some cases with what I'm planning and who I'm planning it with. So a lot of really, really big things coming. This is a great year. It really got off the ground. And if we're looking at the theme of 2025 and the all or nothing of it all, I think it was a success. I really put everything I could into it, sometimes a little bit too much to the point of overdoing it with From Parts Unknown 2 and 3, but I learned a lot of lessons and I could definitely do better. And 2026 is going to be an even bigger year for Pesto Comics, for all of the artists that I've worked with, and hopefully for all of you guys for supporting. So I really want to thank you for being here. It's Christmas Eve. I hope I was able to entertain you a little bit during your holidays. I want to thank you very much. Have a wonderful holiday. We'll talk again next week as we talk about everything 2026. But before you go, I want to mention one thing. If you're watching this on Substack, just stick around after the end. We're going to do this super secret epilogue where I kind of freewheel. This time, I'm going to be a little more structured than usual. We're going to go through all the plans that I laid out in my first post of 2025, and we're going to see where the hits and misses were. So it should be a lot of fun. In a little preview, it's a little embarrassing here and there. So if you're watching on Substack, just stick around. So if you're watching on YouTube, there are two ways to get this epilogue without leaving YouTube. You can either go to the description below and there's a link to that unlisted video, or just click the little card that pops up in the corner and you can see the rest of this. So with all that, I want to thank you for being here. Have a good one. We'll talk next week.